Would help out?
Oh, did it just shut back down?
No.
No, I think it's okay. Okay.
And then if we went to the restaurant, I went in the bathroom. He would bark at the time till I came in.
Pardon me.
So, yeah, so when I
Oh, the hot spots put over here? It's okay. Let's just get
this is a hot spot.
Yeah.
Thanks for your patience here. We're just getting rolling.
That's what they do. Not paying any because you are from New Jersey, New York. That's what this is not being it's got like it's parts of like normal. And that's for God's telling me a second, that's where mine is.
My grandparents.
We were so lucky we landed there. We had no idea where we were going. And we were like, really? Yeah, we asked a friend, one of my daughter's friends said, oh, I have a summer place. I mean, a winter place in Trinidad. So we were here a couple of times, around.
You're like, yeah, we love this.
We
Yeah.
went all the way from Jupiter down to Delray or Boca. Really?
Yeah, it's not. It's not the same. There's something about it that is just. See, that's nice. So my grandparents have private walkway to the beach, which is fabulous, but you can't. It's not walkable. They're right off US 1, and so it's not walkable. Down, like, that's why we like the 30A area so much up north, is because you can walk to the beach, we can walk there, we can walk to breakfast, and it was, I mean, and there, I was going to be going with parks, and I didn't realize that the golf carts were super legal. We have licenses like this, and we know where our next spots are, that's for sure.
Where is it?
I just hooked it on. I think I'm nervous in my
Where's the water?
Gotcha.
Oh, he'll be by the door. He's welcome.
But he's got to read at some point.
Boy, it's like church.
Yeah, they're all in the back.
Yeah, exactly. It seems to go back first, and then here we go. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming today. We really appreciate it to celebrate the life of John, Jersey Johnny Cimasko. The family would like to take a moment to honor John's devotion to his faith. Jersey proclaimed his faith through his good works, and all of us here can testify to that. We all know what kind of a person he was. So to get things started, John's daughter Jill would like to sing for us the servant song.
being here, everybody. Dad loved music and he loved to sing, so we printed the words in the program and invite you to sing along as much as you feel called today.
Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. We are pilgrims on a journey. We are travelers on the road. We are here to help each other walk the mile and bear the load. I will hold the Christ life for you in the nighttime of your fear. I will hold my hand out to you, speak the peace you long to hear. I will weep when you are weeping, when you laugh, I'll laugh with you. I will share your joy and sorrow till we've seen this journey through. Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too.
Now, do I need a mic or can you hear me? Thank you. All right. Glasses on, we're ready to go. Good morning. And thank you all for joining us to celebrate Jersey Johnny and his life well lived. Once upon a time, many years ago, I worked in a relatively large parish up in Carmel, and I worked with an amazing group of strong women of faith. And we teased that we could open our own branch of the church because we had all our bases covered. We had youth ministry, and we had musicians, and we had pastoral associates, and we had it all. And so we decided if we opened our own church, we would be called the Church of What's Happening Now, Mama. So welcome to the second official service of the Church of What's Happening Now, Mama. It is really amazing to look around here and see so many of John's communities represented. Of course, I have to make a list because I forgot them all. So we'll go through it. We have his family and all of John's friends here. And we've got friends who are family. We have my friends who are my family. And we have Jack's friends who are his family. And God knows we have Jill's friends who are her family. Right here in the front row, we've got our Jersey friends. They made it all the way, even with Newark. We have our neighbors, and we have Radio Family, and we have Pepsi Family, and we have Colts people,
We have Colts team people, we have Colts team players, we have fans from the Colts. We have veterans organizations. We've got the Indy Honor Flight, we have the USS Indianapolis, we have Gold Star families. We have everybody here at the Kurt Vonnegut Library, who what John loved more than anything is this particular space. We have our family from St. Elizabeth Seton. We have Little Sisters of the Poor. We've got Carmel High School friends. We have medical professionals who helped John for as long as they could. And anybody that I might have missed, I apologize already. Huh?
The library.
I said the library.
Oh, I missed it.
Basically, that boy was not paying attention. All right, back to this. It absolutely amazes me how many people loved that man and for how long they did. I'm going to tell you a little bit about John's religious and spiritual side. Believe it or not, he and I met in 1978 through a Catholic retreat program. And some of these people here too. We never really discussed scripture much, okay? Except for this one particular passage. He would use this in his defense whenever he possibly could. And it says, "What good is it, brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such a faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister was without clothes or food. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm, eat well,' that does nothing for their physical needs. What good is that? In the same way, faith by itself, if not accompanied by actions, is dead. As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead." Now that is classic John Cimasko right there. Think of what you know about him, okay? But now I also want you to think about that scene in The Wizard of Oz where the wizard is giving the Tin Man his heart, okay? And he's trying to pronounce the word philanthropist. And finally, he couldn't get philanthropist out. He said, "Good deed doer." Those are people who have lots of heart, who care and have concern for others. For us old people here, we all know that Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. Anyway, back to John's faith. His theory, John Cimasko's theory on faith and good deeds. John assumed if he did enough good deeds, he wouldn't have to go to church on Sunday. So, Matt Romo, you are safe for this week. You don't have to go. Back in New Jersey, he would stop along Route 17. Seriously, Route 17 to help people change flat tires. And then he'd come home at 11 o'clock at night and tell me what he did. And he said, "Well, now I don't have to go to church on Sunday." Great. Okay? And then we move here to Indiana, and it's time for Jack, right there, is 7 years old, and he's making his first reconciliation, and John decides to go to confession too, okay? Minor technicality here. He goes to confession with Father Mike Ondo, who happened to be a military chaplain, and he's trying to explain to Father Mike his theory on if he does good deeds, you don't have to go to church, okay? Well, Father Ondo, God bless him, was a very kind man and explained the importance of these good deeds, but he says to John, "You still got to go to church." And John was not particularly happy about that. So if you see this philanthropy or doing of good deeds has always been a part of who John was. Whether he was ringing the bell for the Salvation Army in the middle of the night, or if after a race he was out there picking up trash to raise money for the veterans, or he would do the overnight shift at the radiothon for WIBC. He was willing to do whatever needed to be done to make things better for somebody else. So now it's 1980 or 1981. And we're sitting on the couch in my tiny little dinky apartment, and I'm playing that particular guitar, that's mine. And I play this song. I knew he wasn't gonna know this song, but I play this song one time, and he looks at me and he says, I want that song at my funeral. And I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with him? Okay, I'm thinking, that's a little bit strange. Okay, we're just dating at this point. You want me to play this at your funeral? But I promised I would play this for you. And then I proceeded to forget all about it until not too long ago. John and I are sitting and we're watching TV, and I start seeing commercials for the 50th anniversary rendition of this particular show is coming back. And I suddenly remember, oh my God, I promised this man we're going to sing this song at his funeral. So then I tell Jill the story of said song, and that she's got to learn this thing now, because I promised that I would sing it, but now she's got to sing it. And so we sat down and we read the lyrics, and then we knew exactly why he picked that song. So, go, my baby.
Everything has its season, everything has its time. Show me a reason and I'll soon show you a rhyme. Cats fit on the windowsill, children fit in the snow. Why do I feel I don't fit in anywhere I go? Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Gotta find my corner of the sky. Every man has his daydreams, every man has his goals. People like the way dreams have of sticking to the soul. Thunderclouds have their lightning, nightingales have their song. And don't you see, I want my life to be something more than long. Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Gotta find my corner of the sky. So many men seem destined to settle for something small, but I know that I won't rest until I've had it all. So don't ask me where I'm going, just listen when I'm gone. And far away you'll hear me singing softly to the dawn. Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can
read. It's called We Remember Them. At the rising of the sun and as it's going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and the chill of the winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of the spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and the warmth of the summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and the beauty of the autumn, and during football season, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they will live too. For they are now a part of us. We remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. For as long as we live, they will live too. For now they are a part of us as we remember them.
We pray to the Lord. Lord, you consoled Martha and Mary in their distress. Draw near to us who mourn for John and dry the tears of those who weep. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
You wept at the grave of Lazarus, your friend. Comfort us in our sorrow. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For all the caregivers, friends, families, and medical personnel who are witnessing their loved one with dementia actively decline, and for all of us here grieving the loss of a loved one, we ask for strength and peace. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer. Because God has chosen to call our brother John from this life to himself, we commit his body, for we are dust, and unto dust we shall return. But the Lord will change our mortal bodies to be like his in glory. To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose on earth, a time to be born, a time to die. Here in his last act, in sorrow, but without fear, in love, appreciation, we commit John to his natural end. May the love and peace of God bless and console us and wipe every tear from our eyes. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
That was the doxology in Hawaiian language, Olelo, and my very sweet hula kumu teacher braided this lei that I brought from Hawaii here on Dad's urn.
Right after my dad passed, it was Amy and I and Jill and CJ, and we were talking at Amy in our house about Dad. And I can remember like it was yesterday. It changed my life. It took me a while, though, to listen and to follow it. But I was working for Ball State football, my alma mater, entered my third year doing recruiting. And I was in a bad spot. I was having a loser mentality, selfish mentality. My dad, and only he could say, why even come to work with this mentality if you're defeated before the day begins? And he said, you know, what I have found that whenever, he's so funny, he said, besides Pepsi, he said, whenever I do something, I go there and I take pride in what I do, I have fun with what I do, and I treat others the way I want to be treated. And it's kind of like a cheat code, because you get the golden rule of treating others the way you want to be treated, but then you also think about yourself. And it's only worthwhile to show up if you're going to take pride and have fun. But I think the reason we're here today is not just that philosophy, but I think my dad was always striving to present the best version of himself to the world and to others. And every year at Ball State football, the two head coaches I work for, we read this poem during training camp when things were tough and you're going 2 days for practice. And our coaches at the time said, this is a very important poem and it needs to stay with you for your life. And it makes me think of my dad. It's called The Man in the Glass. When you get what you want and you're struggling for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what the man has to say. For it isn't your mother or father or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end. And you've passed through a difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass. But your final reward will be heartache and tears if you cheated the man in the glass. Good job, Jack.
Wow, crowd has grown. Hi everybody, I'm Joe Stasiak, and as Mary Ann was reading off the list of everybody, let's see, friend, co-worker, Colts, I mean, having Indy honor flight, I mean, all these things had in common with John, so I consider it an honor to be here to kind of share a few things with you about him. The strange thing is, though, it's when I think about Jers, still to this day, I think, what in the hell were you thinking picking your family up? Because of a football team. And no offense, Pete, but we weren't that good. I mean, I was a part of that. We heard that. So they became good, but not when he moved. And then I started thinking, okay, so you pick your family up, you move them. What are you going to do for a job to support your family when you get there? What are your skills? What do you like to do? That kind of thing. Well, obviously, Jers loved the Colts, and he also had a deep respect for those who served our country. So apparently, he started looking for a job with a red and white logo and a blue uniform. That's the only way I can figure that whole thing, and that actually makes some sense. That actually makes sense. I don't know how many of you guys know the story, but John's radio gig started when he showed up at WNDE and during the post-game coverage with his buddy Rob Weber, known as Grover. Grover will be here to fact-check me here in a few minutes, but their knowledge of football and the ability to talk about it without cussing on the air made the host of the show, Dave the King Wilson, take notice. And Dave was just telling me, he's like, they were so knowledgeable, and it was really good to hear what they had to say, so it actually made the show a little bit better. And so when Dave then left WNDE, came over to WIDC, he mentioned to management these guys, and that is how the Jersey Johnny and Grover 2-hour post-game show hosted by a couple of fans was born. John was a natural on the microphone. Not easy to ramble on for 15, 20 minutes at a time. We used to have TV people come in and kind of take guest spots. And TV people are, there's 30 seconds, stop and play a bunch of video, and then 10 seconds here and play a bunch of video. Well, I remember one well-known broadcaster who came in and said everything they had to say in 90 seconds, and Jeff, you may remember this, they were done. And so they ran out all their spots for the hour in the first 15 minutes, and then they had 45 minutes straight that they had to fill. Jers had no problem doing that at all. He volunteered for shifts that nobody else wanted. Even created that overnight shift for the Salvation Army's Radiothon. 6 hours. Midnight to 6. Think about it. Midnight to 6. What kind of calls are you going to get at midnight to 6? That's exactly. If you get anything good, it's probably not airable. But John just loved doing it and never asked for money for that kind of stuff. It was all voluntary. He just had to keep that needle bouncing to help other people, and that was his deal. And I remember he actually had every single group that would come on, see, the morning show host would take their turn, and then there was an afternoon group and whatever else, and then the evening drive, and they would all have this competition. How much money can we raise? And I think Jers set maybe, I don't know, $100, $200 to try and raise in that 6-hour span. But that was probably the hardest and the most satisfying of all the donations, because it was so hard to get that and well drawn out, and it was all done because of his goodness. I know when his head was around something and he just felt very passionate about it, he was relentless. I remember talking about a new organization that was getting started. They would take veterans to Washington, D.C. to visit the memorials dedicated to their service. Then they'd return home, usually to I think it was Plainfield High School. I think there were 2 different high schools that did it. And they had this hero's welcome. And it's something that these veterans never ever got. And it was called Indy Honor Flight. Well, that was back when it started. Several years later, I had the opportunity to host a fundraiser for Indy Honor Flight. And it was at Hendricks County Fairgrounds. And who walks in the door about an hour before everything started but Jers? And I looked at him, I was like, Jers, what are you doing here? And he more correctly asked me, what took you so long to get involved? Thanks, Jers. I mentioned Dave Wilson earlier. Dave and I did a show for 15 years. Well, Dave did the show and I rode his coattails for 15 years. But he actually asked John to come in and speak to the Legion 500, which he was managing over there in Speedway one Veterans Day. And as Dave tells the story, John did a great job, as he always does. Anything he was passionate about, he could speak here, and he was a great orator that way. And but he did a great job up until they started taking questions. And 2 older ladies in the back of the room asked why the honor flight did this and didn't do this kind of thing. And Jers replied, I didn't come here to take suggestions. Sound familiar? Yeah, you can all see it, right? Dave and John were also roommates in Mexico City when the Colts played over there in that exhibition game several decades ago. And Jers disappeared from the room for a few hours, and when he came back, Dave said, hey, where were you? What happened to you? We kind of worried about you. And he said, well, I decided to go for a walk. He passed by the American Embassy, to which he was denied entrance. Imagine that. But he was able to get the Mexican guards that were adorned with machine guns to put him in handcuffs and act like he was being arrested. And I don't know if that picture is, I've seen the photo several times. It may be upstairs. We'll have to go through there and look for it. And knowing Jers, obviously that could have been true, except for everybody, including the guards, were laughing in the picture. So we felt a little bit better about that. I also mentioned how John loved to volunteer. He didn't do it for money or personal advancement. He just did it because it was the right thing to do. To my knowledge, it only backfired once on him when he offered to call bingo for Little Sisters of the Poor.
They're here.
Now, yes, they are here. I just saw them walk in. And you know who else walked in? Terry Lynn Stacy from WIBC. Ter, you are the best at telling the story.
Wait, about the bingo balls?
About the bingo. Well, about the whole thing.
Well, I would say that, you know, there's nothing he would never do, ever not do for the Little Sisters of the Poor, whether that was golfing or any fundraiser they needed help with. And at one point, they needed help with bingo. And I was a part of the bingo and brought up Jers because I was getting ready to leave. He was the second half. And he would put the balls in the wrong holes. Bingo people, you know, that's awful. And they started to come at him. And then he started to come at them. And I've never seen anything like this. And they really, usually the bingo person says, okay, hold on, I apologize. But Jers was like, hold on. And then tried to explain what was happening. But yeah, Jers, and the sisters will tell you that, yes, Jers was such an important part of raising funds for the sisters, regardless of how he was received by bingo. And don't forget that there was nobody that loved picking up trash more than Jersey. Right? I mean, Jersey was so involved in community. When he came here, he not only was here for the Colts, but truly immersed in community. And nobody, I mean, he was jacked up about going out to the track the day after the race and picking up trash. Or 4th of July at Military Park. You know, he would come around and there was nothing more important than picking up trash and raising money for any organization that asked for help. Truly one of a kind. But yeah, the sisters will talk more maybe about bingo.
I noticed they all had scowls on their face and they were all going, this should be interesting if we get in deeper in that. Thank you, Terry. And obviously, John, a very sensitive soul. No better way to illustrate this than the pictures and, again, the deeds. Because you can say what you want, and anybody can throw money at something, but it's the actual work involved in being there. And so I invite you to make sure to go upstairs. There's pictures all around. There's a video that's going to play and things like that. So please go ahead and take advantage of that. Also like to thank the Kurt Vonnegut Memorial Library for offering the venue today. John felt a kinship with Kurt Vonnegut, and as Jim was saying, just really felt at home here. If you feel inclined, you can donate to the library in John's honor. So right now I'd like to have Pat Downey come up and from the library to talk a little bit about what's going on here.
And the donation box is right there, and there's a QR code you can scan if you want to, or there's cash envelopes.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Downey. I'm the operations manager at the Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library. Our founder and CEO, Julia Whitehead, unfortunately could not be here today. Her son is graduating. So she has asked me to speak on her behalf. Well, I didn't know him. John was certainly spoken about very positively within this building, within these halls. He was there at the beginning when this library and museum was starting out. And even he helped out when we moved buildings to our lovely venue we are here at today. As Julia has said, he was part of our team of doers that we really appreciated that helped us make this vision into a reality. On behalf of her, I'd like to share a Kurt quote with you all. Are there any children in the audience? I want to make sure they hear this one. They are raise them up. This is a quote from Kurt. It is, "Hello, babies. Welcome to Earth. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter. It's round and wet and crowded. On the outside, babies, you've got 100 years here. There's only one rule I know of, babies. God damn it, you have to be kind."
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to steal a moment as the curator of the Vonnegut Museum. Having grown up with the Cimaskos, Mary Ann was my teacher in our youth group in my church growing up. We had a student band, basically, where Mary Ann played guitar, I played bass guitar. A lot of my friends were involved. Big Neil Young fans, which, my dad always wished that we hadn't been so introduced to the music of the 60s and 70s because we stole all of his records. And then later on in life, he was like, where the hell did all my records go? And of course, it was his children and who stole them. So, it's a bit overwhelming. So I knew John Cimasko a long time. And, when we started the museum, we didn't have a lot. In January 2011, we had a 2-room storefront, and I remember I had finished my master's degree, and my mother had found out there was a Vonnegut museum, and she said, you go down there and you beg for a job right now. And I was like, Mom, it's Kurt Vonnegut. There's no way in heck they're going to need help or people, because I just assumed that everybody cared a lot. That was very ignorant and arrogant in hindsight. The truth is, we needed people. And that's how I knew John as someone who stepped up. Routinely stepped up, and routinely stepped up for things that other people didn't necessarily want to do. He did it with enthusiasm and vigor. He had a loud personality. He made the mistake of telling me that he saw the Grateful Dead once in 1974. I think I only asked him about 500 times to tell me the story, which eventually he just said, Chris, I think I've told you everything I know. And I was like, oh, I wonder if this was annoying.
And there's many things we can't share about that night.
Yeah. August 6th, 1974. It's pretty bad that I was 12 when Jerry died, but I know what date John Cimasko saw the Grateful Dead. 11 years before I was born. But yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Jersey Johnny on behalf of his family. Because he was really there for us during a time where we had nothing, and apparently he made a lifetime of doing that. So. That's a great way to live. Thanks for letting me share.
So we were going to show a clip, but we're having technical difficulties. I invite you all to go on YouTube and search John Cimasko, and he has an interview with comedian Gary Goldman for the Kurt Vonnegut Festival many years ago. And they just speak on how, as men in the world, especially in the world of sports, where it can be a kind of macho scene, finding Kurt Vonnegut, Dad found himself. He felt like seen in the humility and in the sincerity and in the gentleness. Maybe not gentleness, but yeah, Kurt Vonnegut. The sensitivity, we'll call it. So I just wanted to thank Kurt Vonnegut Library Museum for having us here. And I also wanted to thank John's nurses and medical staff over these past 6+ years. Dr. Perez is doctor at IU Medicine, Paradigm Palliative and Hospice Care. And then we also want to give a special thank you to his speech therapist, Teresa, who's here with us today. Teresa was my dad's speech therapist and such an incredibly kind and compassionate person who would end up playing such a big role in Jersey Johnny's final chapter as somewhat of his radio show producer and co-host. And unfortunately as well, I wanted to show a video of Dad and I singing I Shall Be Released, a Bob Dylan song, at speech therapy from about 2.5 years ago. And Dad knew all the words and he was singing strong. And I invite you, I put that on YouTube so you can find that too. I invite you to go listen to his voice singing that. And yeah, in that video you see the way Teresa sets up his microphone so he can see how loud his voice is, and it really was this tender, intimate final chapter of the Jersey Johnny show. So if Teresa would like to speak, you're welcome to come up here for a moment. Thank you so much.
Well, looking out at all these people who love Jersey Johnny really touches my heart. I didn't have to know him for very long to feel that genuineness about him, the wonderful sincerity, all the love just poured from this gentleman, even when he had trouble finding his voice and his words. It came out. While I only knew him in these final years,
I remember the first time I met you and we started with home care, and she said, "Welcome to the Cimasko fiasco." And I said, "Oh, they're going to pay me to have fun with this family. Let's do it." And then he made enough progress that I got to the privilege of seeing him in an outpatient setting where we had some more equipment, and he was able to find that voice again, and I can't tell you the joy I felt helping him with that. And boy, did he go into auto-mode when he saw that measure, the little device we have that measures the volume of his voice, and he could get some visual feedback, and he 1, 2, 3. And it was just absolutely beautiful. And the relentlessness that you mentioned earlier, once he learned what he needed to do to get it back, and family too. Jill, you'd FaceTime him from your faraway, beautiful destinations that you find, and do his exercises with him. So I can't take all the credit. He worked his tail off to get it, and so did you. And of course, part of his therapy was, well, we're beginning and we're trying to find that voice and get enough volume where people can understand. So what do you want to be heard saying every day? Top of his list is, "I love you." And then, of course, what are the crazy cats doing? Upstairs, she's got a new floor that is very loud. And let us not forget, where's the pass rush? Come on. And we had a point, I could walk down the hall to the front of the office and hear him shouting out, "Where's that pass rush?" Make sure we heard that. I just only regret that I didn't have more time with John and his family, because an absolute beautiful giving soul. And it's so wonderful to hear more about his life and all the things he's done. What a blessing to know him and be involved. And I'm glad you have that video. That was probably the most touching point in my career, and I'm old, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I'm really glad you have that, Jill. That was a beautiful, tender moment. I just really appreciate my time I had with him. It's nice to look out here at all these beautiful faces that he's touched. I'm sure there are many that couldn't be here today that he's touched as well. So thank you all. Thank you.
I'll grab one too. Get something for hosting this shit. We do have some scheduled guests that'd like to come up and say a few things. So let's get started at the very beginning, and Sister Stephanie is going to get us started.
Stephanie's feeling a little nervous, so I'm going to speak on her behalf. I wanted to honor my dad's family, his sister, who's here, his big sister. And when I chat with my aunt and she reflects on Dad at a young age, she says from a little boy that he was the peacekeeper of the family, that he was always the one of the 5 siblings to be talking to all siblings, and that he was always friendly and sweet and funny, and it's just a testament to Dad's spirit and soul that he's always been who he was. And honoring also Dad's nephew, I believe, is here, Tony, so we just want to honor the Cimasko family.
There he is in the back.
Awesome.
So Greg is up next. He's one of Jersey's childhood friends, again, all the way from New Jersey.
When I say 3 words, you'll know that, by the way. I said I wasn't going to cry, but thanks, Steph. Outside of Stephanie, I knew John the longest of anyone here. So I'm an old school teacher and a paint salesman and a corporate trainer, so I got paid to do this for many, many years. But this it's going to be a little tough, but I got some notes. And then if it's okay, I might tell a story or two. So in the fall of 1961, my family moved from Queens, New York to a small town in Bergen County, New Jersey, around 10 miles from the George Washington Bridge. Dumont is what the New York Times have called an affordable oasis in the heart of affordable Bergen County. And it was in Dumont where I met John. And we embarked on a 64-year friendship. John had never heard of an Armenian before, and I didn't even know what Polish was. So we're 6 years old, and we're in the first grade, and it was literally the day that our grade school opened up, Selza School, by the way, where my 4 kids went to also. And I had a chance to teach there a couple years ago. I'll tell that in a minute. So we were first grade, our grade school just opened, and a group of 6-year-old boys sat in the back of Mrs. Chase's class laughing and being goofy. First day of school, by the way. We had so much fun. The fun carried us, and many of us really through the next 50 years. A couple of us are here today. I'm usually pretty good at this, so I apologize. We attacked every day with a passion, no matter what the subject was. Current events, music, sports, politics. We loved to banter. We loved to talk, both of us. I mean, how 2 guys could talk so much. There was a time when kids actually talked to each other. And our teachers really, really loved us because we talked to them nonstop. And you can imagine we argued with them nonstop. And as we could see with the music was as big a part of our lives as sports were, believe it or not. And politics, which we still try to avoid. Although John did send me a note once a few years back saying, sorry about Mike Pence. So everything was a competition with us. We played all day. We left house early in the morning back in those days and told our moms we'd be home for dinner. Then nothing but baseball, basketball, football. These guys were a lot bigger than me in those days. They would beat me up, kill me. And we would just talk about music, sports, the girls we wish we had the nerve to talk to, and what we were going to be when we grew up. So I sat next to John in school the day that John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth. As the teacher rolled in the black and white TV into our classroom, we watched in amazement as history unfolded. We sat next to each other in the 3rd grade the day Mrs. Anthony cried as she told us President Kennedy had been assassinated. And our whole neighborhood just was a hush, right? We were in the 7th grade and the 8th grade when Bobby Kennedy was assassinated and Martin Luther King. The Vietnam War was hanging over our heads, and your family gave to that, helped us in our country. John and I both come from families who emigrated to the United States in the 1920s. Our dads were coincidentally born 10 days apart. John's dad was born in Poland, my dad was born in France as my family was escaping the persecution from Turkey to come here. And so, you know, we came here, our families came here as babies. Our dads were World War II veterans, and they lived out the American dream in this little working class suburb. But one thing they gave us, and you guys have seen it already today, is that work ethic and the thought about giving back to your community. So for a bunch of goofy guys, ex-jocks, we all grew up pretty well, and we raised really good families, and all of us have continued to give in our respective communities. But John was always different. A little goofy, big strapping guy who was as good and goofy as he was brawny. At a time when there was one phone in everyone's house and maybe a black and white TV downstairs, John and I had asked for permission from our parents to use that one phone. Now, I only had one younger sister. Their house, it was much more of a competition because you had Marie was 12 years older than us, and then Anthony 8 years older than us, and then Steph 4, and then John and I the same age, and then we had Eddie a year behind us. So when you go to Cimasko's house, it was always pretty funny to see that kind of banter with all these different ages. But we would ask for permission to call our parents permission to call each other, and what we would do is we would talk each night, almost every day. We would talk about school. We talked about homework, and we talked about a new song on the radio. So you just played a part of Turn, Turn, Turn. So John and I would call each other each night, try to predict which song was going to be the next #1 hit. And we said to each other, do you believe the Byrds are actually singing a song from the Bible? Because who the hell's going to listen to that? So we were both wrong about that one. But we later on grew, we love music so much. And that little anecdote here about 1974, we were at August 8th, 1974, 2 days before my 19th birthday. We were at Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City, and we saw Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. And in the middle of the concert, Stephen Stills dropped the microphone and said, "For the first time in a long time, I'm proud to be an American. President Nixon just resigned." And my friend Kenny here started crying. So you can guess who the Democrats were and Republicans were. We were part of what we always referred to as the toughest 2-4 football team in the history. We lost a half dozen games by less than 6 points, by the way. Kenny and Tony, big parts of that team, were captains, and John epitomized that team. So many of you guys are football fans can imagine John playing football. Big strapping guy, no pads, short sleeve shirt, a single bar across his face. A single bar. And when I would say to him, I would obviously busted my nose a few times. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm the punter also." I said, "You're a defensive end and a tight end, and you're wearing one bar." We wore high top black spikes. And boy, oh boy, I tell you, we just really, I'm going to put this away. I'm a big Jets fan.
Oh, God.
So January 12th, 1969 was about 2 weeks away from John's 14th birthday. I didn't turn 14 until that summer. And in those days, the Super Bowls, it was Super Bowl III, wasn't a Super Bowl like it is today. It was a game, all right? Not everybody got together. You watched the game at your house. My dad wasn't a fan. My mom was. So on the black and white TV, I'm watching the Jets play the Colts. And John and I are on the phone with each other, going back and forth. Because even then, he was a Colts fan. So the Colts, of course, lose to the Jets in that classic day. And years later, in 1985, John and I and a couple of the other Dumont guys, we went to Canton, Ohio to watch Joe Namath get inducted into the Hall of Fame. The week I turned 30, by the way, with two other guys. Roger Staubach got inducted that day, and OJ. So there we are, shaking hands with those guys. And John, who knew that January 12, 1969, outside of my wedding and then subsequently 4 kids and now my grandkids' days, that was the biggest day of my life. So we're walking into the Hall of Fame, and Mary Ann's got great pictures of that weekend. And we had a picture taken in front of Johnny Unitas' statue and in front of Joe Namath's statue. And John just looked at me, and we just knew how important that day was for both of us in history. Really quickly, I could tell stories about John all day. We have nuns here, I think, so half of them I can't count. We lived together. John and I were friends from first grade through high school. And when Mary Ann called me to tell me that John had passed, she called me literally an hour later. I've gone through a lot recent years. I lost my mom, I lost my wife, I lost my sister a few months ago. And I just reflect, with each one of them, I lost a little piece of my life. And I said, after Mary Ann called, I just hung up and said, I cannot remember a day when I didn't know John Cimasko. I can't remember a day. So we would argue, we would laugh. We laughed so much for so many years that our mothers thought we were kind of weird at we kind of wondered, what the hell is he doing moving to Indiana? So everyone always says, well, John's so goofy. His kids are Jack and Jill, for God's sake. But I would say back, wait a minute. She's just as goofy. She went along with it. She said, let's go to Indiana to watch the Colts. All right? Let's name our kids Jack and Jill. Let's be different. And that's why we love you, because we were there the day you guys met, and so it's been great. Really, another really quick John story. John was always so goofy that we would just say to him, what's he going to do tomorrow? And so my friend Joan here, we went to high school together. We reconnected after my wife passed away. She went to high school with us. And she said to me recently, I was afraid to walk past you guys in the hallway. And I said, what? We were like the nicest guys. But we had a gauntlet. But we made as much fun of John as we did anybody else. Those of you who are in education, you know we can't do that anymore. All right? So I had an opportunity, and my last story, I promise. I had an opportunity a few years back. I had retired after when my wife got sick and to take care of her. And I had an opportunity to go back to teach school. And I had an opportunity to go back to teach school in the grade school that John and I went to. And even better, a 5th grade teacher went out on maternity. And I was asked to teach the 5th grade in the exact same classroom that John and I went to the 5th grade. And when I lined my kids up every morning, my 10-year-olds, here I am at the time, I'm like 67 years old, it's right behind Kenny's house where he grew up. And I would tell my kids, you guys know this, I went to school here. And I would watch these 10-year-olds. The superintendent, principal said to me, you're going to love this class. They're going to love you. So the only thing is, they're the chattiest class I've ever seen. And I said, no. We were. But I said one thing to my class each and every day. I would watch them. I had the greatest class that year. Joni knows, she heard me every day rave about them. I would say to them, go home tonight, take your phone out, and take a picture of yourself. I said, because I sure the hell wish I had done that when I was 10 years old, because I'd give anything to be sitting in your chair right now next to your best friend, like I did. Well, God bless you.
Two things, let it not be lost on you that John passed on April Fool's Day. And secondly, Greg, you just did the entire thing with your ass in John's face.
Hey, no one can appreciate him that more than him. Because I said, most of the stuff I can't tell you.
Perfect. From the Indianapolis Colts, without this guy, Jers wouldn't have ever moved to Indiana. Pete Ward.
Well, this has been the most entertaining memorial service. I was actually going to wear a dark suit today. My wife said, from what you told me about John, I guarantee you no one else there is going to be wearing a dark suit. So it's not the first time my wife saved me, but thank you, Marianne, for asking me to say a few words, which I'm honored. Great job, Jack. You have a beautiful voice, by the way. So I first met John, it was, that I remember is December of '84. And we were at New England. It's the last game of the year. We're horrible, the Patriots are horrible. He's in the hotel lobby and he introduces himself to me. And he says, I'll be at the game tomorrow. And I'm thinking, why? You know? 16 degrees in Sullivan Stadium, you know, remember that. And so I figured he's like a relative of a player or a coach or something like that, you know. And then, but his face was familiar, so I knew I'd seen him before. And then next year, '85, second week of the year, we're in Miami, and I meet John and Marianne. And quite different, you know, climate and scenario. And then fast forward to the early '90s, and I'm in the Hoosier Dome pregame, and John's standing on the front row before the game, and he says, "Hey, Pete," you know, and he introduced. He said, "I moved here," you know, and I'm thinking, okay. Is it a stalker? But at the very least, I'm thinking, okay, this guy's, you know, a super fan. That's great. Every franchise needs a core of fans like this, but I think he's kind of one-dimensional, maybe a little OCD. But he was also a great ambassador. I remember a memory that stands out is like the mid-'90s. You were on the team, and I was driving up to camp for a Sunday practice, and Johnny calls in to WIBC, and he's saying, I'm looking forward to camp. We're, you know, I'm getting the family. We're loading up the cooler with Pepsis. We're going to find a couple of spots. It was such a training camp was so such drudgery, you know. And he made it sound like paradise. Great ambassador, you know. So he, you know, he was a great Colts fan, going all the way back to John Unitas, and he was able to actually see the Baltimore version of the Colts and the Indianapolis version both win Super Bowls. So I just thought of that when I was sitting here. But so I thought he was a one-dimensional type of super fan, which was great. But as I got to know him and what a Renaissance man he was, I was so wrong, you know. I mean, just look at this, everyone that's here, you know. He was, to me, personally, professionally, as a great fan and valuable to us. Personally, he was genuine, kind, giving, passionate, compassionate, just a wonderful guy who left us too soon. And he made the world better. So I was honored to have known John, and I appreciate you all, and you know, because I've known you all for a long time too. Yeah. So, but I just wanted to say how much John meant to me, and what a great asset he was to our community. So.
Well, the owner of the radio station, which early on gave John and a few others of us in this room an opportunity, a platform to, not only a platform, but a voice to go out there and do good things, do the right thing, and make a positive impact in our Central Indiana community is Jeff Samoyan. Hey, Jeff. And a Sagamore of the Wabash. Oh,
you too. Well, it's great to be here. You have a wonderful family. I think this is an incredible tribute to John. I got to know John when he started the radio station, and I first heard him, and I thought, this guy really knows football, and he loves the Colts. And then somebody said, he moved here from New Jersey. And with all due respect, during those days when we were Colts fans, I said, he moved to New Jersey for this? But he loved the Colts. We worked with him on the honor flights. He loved the community. He made such a difference. You know, the tributes and the things that he did for so many people. The most important thing I've learned at my advanced age, if you live a life of meaning and purpose, and John did, he made a difference in his listeners' lives because they loved him. He imparted great information. But more important than that, he made a difference in the lives of so many people. He lived a life of purpose. I'm honored to know him. I guess, should we announce a scholarship?
Please, yeah.
Okay, Emmis and Urban One are going to start a fund that I hope everybody will contribute to by donating $2,000 to start a scholarship fund in John's memory. Amazing.
He's the Grover from the Jersey Johnny and Grover show, Ron Weber. Come on up, Ron. Good to see you, buddy. Joe. Been a few years.
I met John at Union Station downtown before the Colts game. Sorry. Dave the King Wilson and Jimmy Mad Dog Matus had a show. And they let fans come up and talk. And it was probably a mistake. But they let John and I talk. And I had known Jimmy Mad Dog Matus for a few years. And Dave Wilson was very kind to us and would lob softballs at us and let us say funny things on the radio. Now, we both were immersed in the Colts, and we knew everything about the Colts. We knew the draft picks, we knew where they went to school, we knew how tall they were, we knew all their stats. The day I met John, like everyone, I think Jack was with him, and we're sitting at a table, and he says, "I moved here from New Jersey." Wow. I thought I was committed to this. And John, I think John is the personification of commitment. So you fast forward a few years, Dave throws us a bone and puts us on the radio. And we were a good team for 5 years. John is funny. He had that New Jersey accent, which played very well on the radio. And he could talk. He could just keep talking. But John was funny. And I use this story, and I tell this story to this day to people. One of John's jokes, one of my favorites, is he used to drink when he was younger, and he stopped drinking. And John would say, "I now drink fake beers and get in fake fights." As John. Now, we would skip work, go to training camp. We would be the first ones in the stadium, down on the rail when the players come in and out. Those years with John was a blast. I like to think I got him started on the radio. But after about 5 years, the powers that be at the radio station all agreed that I was not meant for radio. But John had an ease about him on the radio, as any of you who listened heard over the years. And John, again, was committed to that. Much more committed than I could ever be to being on the radio. John was committed. He was committed to his family. He was committed to the Colts, unlike anyone. I don't know if there's another soul in the United States whose team moved and that person moved with them. I don't know that you could, I don't think you could find one. That's how committed John was. He was a friend, he was a partner on the radio, and God bless Jersey Johnny.
Well, you heard Jill describe Teresa earlier as the later part producer, board op, and all that kind of stuff for John. Well, his real life producer, co-host, and board op Matt Hicks is with us right now. I'd like to share with you.
Good afternoon. I'm Matt Hicks. If there are any program directors in the room, I'm breaking the big producer rule at speaking. So I apologize in advance, but I did take notes. The old producer advice was if you've got to say something, get in and get out. So I'll do my best. I had the privilege of being John's producer for about 10 years and his friend for much longer. Today, we're obviously here not just to mourn his passing, but to honor his life, because he touched so many lives in so many different ways. 25 years on the radio is a unbelievably remarkable achievement. It's something that not many who commit their life and career to radio can pull off. So it's just an amazing thing. He had a voice that was filled with infectious enthusiasm for the Colts, but also the Pacers, and he loved the Indy 500. And I've heard it a couple times today. I don't know if he liked the race more or picking up the trash more. But also, I was remembering this a few weeks ago. He always would tell me he loved the pre-race festivities. He loved that. He would do the whole ceremony. He'd get there at 6 o'clock in the morning when the bomb would go off and stay all the way through. And then about 2 laps in, get out of there. Probably because he knew he was going back the same way. His voice, of course, in the airways of Indianapolis, but thanks to the internet, back home in New Jersey as well, we would get phone calls from all over the country, actually, when we were doing our unofficial pre-game show or our unofficial post-game show for those many years. John's contributions to this community, though, extended obviously far beyond the studio. He had a deep commitment to so many different organizations. One thing that's really stood out to me as I've been reflecting here in these last few weeks is the prisoner of war and missing in action chair at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Was a big part of that being there was John's doing. It wasn't just a project for him, it was a mission, driven by his profound respect for those who served our country. And of course, his generosity didn't stop there. I mean, obviously it touched me, as I mentioned. Producers aren't supposed to talk, and he just pretty much ignored that. Talked right to me all the time, and allowed me to have a role in radio that honestly I never dreamed I would be able to have, and I owe that all to them. He didn't just support charities, he championed them. He lent his time, his voice, and his energy to, and we mentioned them, Little Sisters of the Poor, the Indy Honor Flight, the Salvation Army Radiothon, right here at the Kurt Vonnegut Library and Museum. He just wasn't a name on a list. He actively, was so actively involved. Many years during the Radiothon, he would coax me. I was there till midnight on most of those nights anyway, doing another show with Bob Lovell. And he would always say, hey, you know, if you got a minute after the show, bring your trumpet. So I would do that. We would play and sing Christmas carols, and I would play and he would sing anything for John. That was him. All in, all the time. Such a big heart. And I kind of keep coming back to the word generosity, and he was so generous, but also his family was so generous of him, you sharing him with us and giving us that time with him. We so appreciate that. Sense of humor, oh yes. I'm actually surprised I'm the first one to bring this up, but we walked the mini marathon once together. And I knew this was a thing with him, but if he would see anybody in Asics tennis shoes, beeline right over and get their expert opinion on their comfort and performance. But the cool thing about that was, if you had Asics on, you weren't just another person. You were now in like the club. You were in the group. Gosh, he was just so larger than life, and I'm so honored to have the friendship that we had. We would often joke, radio prep for a 2-hour show doesn't take as much time as we put into it, because we would oftentimes call each other throughout the week and talk about 5 or 10 minutes about the nuts and bolts of radio, and then it would immediately go into other stuff. We would talk about music. We talked a lot about music, of course. But also our kids, and that's really how I got to know you guys, Jack and Jill. We would talk about you. So proud and loved you guys so much, and that was evident in our phone calls. Couple more stories, just memories. The 4th of July show, the show we would do around the 4th, was one of his absolute favorites. I'd like to think we were on the cutting edge of the competitive eating thing. We would have George Shea on, who was the announcer. If you ever watched the 4th of July hot dog contest, he is just a wild guy. So to have him on the radio was like a circus. But very fun, and we loved that show. We had Joey Chestnut on. other professional eaters that he would hold court with. I mean, he would just, I mean, any guest he had on, he was not only an instant expert, but like their friend.
Yeah.
It was just so funny. Eddie Money was such a big fan of. They had met, I think, in the 500 Festival Parade. I think John was doing radio interviews. And he had found out he was going to be playing at a casino, like, I don't even know if it was anywhere near Indiana, but he had a gig. So we reached out, I think he may have reached out to a PR person or something. We had Eddie Money on. We had Eddie Money on our show 3 or 4 times. And each time it was like those two, I just got out of the way. I mean, those two were just, it was like they were such fast friends. You know, he made up a game that I know that we kind of started called the Arrow, which was just a really kind of cheap and easy way to talk about different things and give our quick opinion on them. But really, I think it was just an excuse to play Harry Nilsson's song, Me and My Arrow, which great. I mean, the music was such a big part of him, and me too. I was a music major in college, and we had music in common. But John's life, if I may, was a symphony of kindness, generosity, and genuine connection. He played his part beautifully, and the music of his life will resonate in our hearts forever. We ache and hurt with his absence, but the stories we have to remember him will live on in us forever. I wanted to close here with a quote from Kurt Vonnegut. I think how appropriate is that with where we are. A purpose of human life, no matter who is controlling it, is to love whoever is around to be loved. And if you have ever had a conversation with John, you knew you were the person around him and he was loving you. We miss you deeply, John, and your memory will forever be a blessing.
Well, after hearing all these things about John, you forget that we haven't even gotten to what he did full time. And maybe it's time for equal time here because we've heard such great things. John would tell me how horrible of an employee he was at Pepsi. So anyway, let's hear from Joe Snyder from Pepsi.
Well, I am not much of a public speaker, and I am wholly underprepared, but I had the honor of being John's union steward, and if from the stories you've heard, you can imagine that was an adventure. John was just such a great man to me from the moment I started at Pepsi. The conversations we would have, not even about work. The work that we do is not exciting or fun or anything like that, but we would see each other in the morning and the evenings, and morning John conversations were sometimes great, but evening conversations, he could approach you as a very grumpy man if you were not interesting to John. And, I just feel honored to be his friend, honestly. From Kurt Vonnegut, he reintroduced me to Kurt. When you read Kurt Vonnegut books when you're 12, they don't hit you like they do when you're 30 or 20. To the honor flight, the USS Indianapolis. He taught me more about the USS Indianapolis than I ever learned in school. I'm not good at this, so I'm sorry. But I do feel privileged and honored to be John's friend. He was a great man, a great friend, and I will always cherish the conversations we had. So.
Thank you.
Well, at this time, if Joey, I don't know if you wanted to come up and say something. Joey Molinaro is also one of our radio. He's still here? Okay, well, guess not.
Oh,
So, but he was there. But if anybody else would like to take this opportunity to say some brief words, this would be your time to do it. Just let me know. You can come up here, or did we cover it all? Okay. Yep.
personally and so much for helping to establish that. We're hoping to maybe launch it on the anniversary of Jersey Johnny Day. I think it's September 12th. And the intention for that will be, we're thinking for someone who is in college at a university in Indiana, who's maybe a TCOM, telecommunications major, and is a good deed doer, who just is known for making an effort to serve their community in the spirit of Jersey Johnny. So there's a sign-up sheet upstairs, and we really invite you to write your name, email down to be a part of that. And I just wanted to share a few brief words. I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone here for being here. Thank everyone for knowing and loving my dad. And yeah, that we're together to be able to honor his life and his legacy. I want to thank this amazing city of Indianapolis for welcoming my family 35 years ago and making my dad's wildest dreams come true. Dreams he didn't even know he would have until he got here. And I want to thank my dad for following his heart and offering me the gift of such a beautiful life. One of the biggest lessons Dad taught me was to find something that we're passionate about, that we love, that gets us out of bed in the morning, anything. And that when we cultivate that passion, when we make a wave, when we create a platform, we're able to take others along with us and truly serve our community. We all know Dad was passionate about football and selfless service, and as we've also heard here today, many of us also remember John for his love of music. And I feel so grateful my parents have always encouraged me to follow my dreams. Since a young age, music has always been the closest thing I've found to God, but I didn't realize just how sacred it could be until music and singing became such an important part of Dad's final chapter, keeping his swallowing and speaking muscles strong, with the entire Neil Young catalog still available to him in his memory, even until the very end. So, with that, I would love all of us to close our eyes and just take a meditative moment, maybe 3 deep breaths. Jersey Johnny is here with us in this Colts marble blue urn, and he's just so grateful for us all to be here together. So let's just take 3 deep breaths. Get my guitar. And we have the lyrics printed. All Dad wanted to hear at the end of his life was Neil Young. So we're all going to sing a little Neil Young together. Ready, everybody? My, hey, hey.
This is the story of Johnny Rotten.
It's better to burn out than it is to rust. The king is gone, but he's not forgotten. All right, let's sing it out. Hey, hey, my, rock and roll can never die. There's more to the picture than meets the eye. Hey, hey, my.
All right, I think maybe we need a bathroom break, maybe we'd like a refreshment. At this point, we're gonna kind of break away. 20 to 30 minutes, so right around 2:05, 2:10. We'll meet back down here if you would like to go ahead with us, and we are gonna take a walk down the canal to the USS Indianapolis Monument and lay the flowers here in John's memory. So we can actually give honor to the veterans who we celebrate here with Memorial Weekend, and then also our buddy Jersey Johnny. But within that time, please socialize, have fun, get upstairs. There's refreshments up there. There's a slideshow, and then be sure to sign the guest book. And then also don't forget, if you'd like to donate, the QR code is right there on the corner. If you'd like to help out the museum and library here, you can just scan that.
Thank you, Doug.
What's your mom's name? Lori. She lives in Indiana right now. It's about 2 hours
We were young and a little while. And you got to see your dad so much for us. I met him at Larry came. You got beautiful voice.
Alright, we're going for a tour upstairs. This is Ian. I'm well. Yeah, me too. Way to go, Jacqueline.
That's such a pretty
What's that? That'd be a good idea to put it out. Where is it? Upstairs for refreshments? Yeah, we definitely want to do that. I'll help you just a second.
At my
I
It's the live stream. We're closing it right now.
Bye.
Track field score. So let's say Jeff Bird did.
Pardon me.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Bounce around. And then a graduation.